I wonder if there's any YouTubers out there that might be reviewing my little YouTube series. And when I say YouTube series, it's basically like a collection of over 190 reviews. And some of them aren't even, actually, maybe even below that, because some of them aren't even reviews, they're just skits, but they're still part of my review series. Because, well, people like Nostalgia Critic and Jamboree have done it. Or maybe there's nobody reviewing my channel because it's not well known enough. But hey, not really a problem. Is it? Nah, I'm just kidding. Anyway, let's talk about something gruesome and something narrated that's independently created on YouTube.
The filming Daniel.
Hey guys, it's Daniel here, and I'm back with a new review. Now, this one is going to be kind of interesting, because I have never reviewed something that was independently made by a YouTuber that's not for anything for Hollywood, nothing that is making money, nothing at all. It's just a project that was made because somebody is inspired by lots of television series and movies to create their own little project. And this is going to be interesting to do a review of. But first, let's talk about the person that I'm talking about. Who is Dan's Reviews? Dan's Reviews is a YouTube channel created by somebody named Dan, who is very into a lot of different TV shows, like The Walking Dead, Breaking Bad, Dexter, Lost, From, and many other TV shows that have the very serious storytelling and lots of, I'm just going to say it, a lot of gruesome imagery. I mean, have you seen Walking Dead or Dexter? There's a lot of that. But also, not only does he do reviews of these different types of shows, but he also takes inspiration from them to create his own individual projects from the mind of storytelling. And I have to say, of course, he's got like, I don't know, like over like 3,000 videos on his channel, so of course I haven't seen most of them, but I have seen quite a lot of them, and for what I've seen, I think he definitely has a lot of like great reviews to talk about, whenever it's good or it's bad, and it can be a blast whenever he reviews bad stuff, like the future seasons of Fear the Walking Dead, or some bad seasons of other TV shows, and he just rants about them because of their bad writing, but he also adds in some comedy and uses multiple clips from different YouTube videos and different shows and kind of combinates them together to create a comedic visual display of how bad some of these shows are, which honestly I just find it to be such a blast, and he definitely has a lot of ideas. However, not only is his reviews really good that I've seen, he does create his own projects, like his own TV series for his YouTube channel. And today, I'm going to be reviewing the main series that he created for his YouTube channel, and that is a post-apocalyptic survival series called World Gone Mad. So the premise of World Gone Mad is that it takes place a couple years into an outbreak after a mysterious disease starts affecting people all around the world and turning them into these zombie-level creatures called deadheads. And we end up meeting our main character, Lincoln West, who is out trying to survive in the apocalypse while searching for his family. And along the way he comes across a couple of survivors, including a man named Tom, a woman named Sydney, and eventually reuniting with his wife Hayley and kids. However, things are going to be taking a turn for Lincoln, as he not only has to lead the group for survival against the deadheads, but also against other survivors, and lots of blood and really inventive inspirational storytelling ensues. Now this is going to be very interesting because the kind of series that World Gone Mad is that it's like a narrated series with Dan's reviews doing all of the narration and all the voices for all the characters and showing images from like people and scenery from other TV shows to like really like show that he has seen a lot of well-known shows that inspired him to make World Gone Mad the kind of genre and show it is. And I have to say, this was a really, really exciting series. Like, I gotta say, for a series that is like using the kind of like storytelling and the kind of way of like showing the story and telling the story that it is, I did think it was really, really good. And I think a majority of it comes from the storytelling, which we will get to as we go on throughout this review. In my opinion, the one thing about World Gone Mad that is kept consistently great throughout its runtime so far is the writing. Dan is a great writer. I mean, I honestly could see him like becoming a showrunner slash writer for a TV show in the future. Like, his writing and inspiration for the show takes a lot of, like, inspiration from such shows like Walking Dead, Last of Us, and quite a few post-apocalyptic shows, and he incorporates what he really liked in those shows into World Gone Mad, including the variant of zombies, which are in the show called Deadheads. I think they're called Deadheads. I could be getting that wrong, but he also displays some different imagery, some different pictures of visuals, which, honestly, he actually comes up with these very interesting locations and different scenarios and settings for whenever our characters are in a dangerous spot in the show, and just the way that he adds like his own different takes on what has been inspired from other just post-apocalyptic shows were very inventive. But this show does go out of its way to make itself brutal at times. Like, even whenever we see, okay, that is definitely inspired by this one show, or this is inspired by the other show, in the back of Dan's mind, he also knows how to add his own different brutal and gory moments, and also shocking emotional moments that will like, Jesus Christ, man, like, this is great storytelling. Like, honestly, I definitely could see him getting some work as a showrunner in the future, and the different ways that he's writing stories. Like, these are really good scripts, and the multiple storylines that we've seen in the first 4 seasons that were very interesting, and also displayed a lot of character development in very captivating ways. And although some people might be a bit iffy about the idea of a narrated show with text and images being put on screen, although some people might be a bit iffy towards the idea, I actually think it works in this show's favour, because Dan's narration, whenever he's telling the story, is really being like narrated with so much heart for his own work that whenever we hear the words of what is about to happen, we're just like on the edge of our seats, like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? We don't want that character to get injured. What's going to happen to this character? Oh my god, these deadheads are coming its way. Like, look all of this gunpowder. Like, this is, in my opinion, really great visual storytelling. But also, not only is his narration great, and the multiple images that he takes from different shows are very creative, but also the acting, because he does voice all of the characters in this show, and I have to say, he voice acts these characters very well. He handles the comedy moments, because they do slip in a lot of comedy in the show. He handles all of the serious moments, and also the different voices he uses for each character is very good. I actually liked a lot of the different, kind of like southern voices, deep voices, or very like pretty high voices for some of the characters. But also whenever something gets emotional in the show, Dan performs those moments very, very well. Like, I did ask him in a live video for the Dead City Season 2 trailer if he like really loves being a writer, if he loves writing, and he said yes, so I could see him becoming a really great writer. But I could also see him do well as an actor too, because he definitely performs these moments and emotional moments very superbly, and I was shocked. Like, He does multiple voices, and he does emotional voices very superbly. I think he has so much charisma, and I thought that he performed them very well. I was also very interested by a lot of the characters in this show. Like, we have our main character, Lincoln West, who I guess is kind of like meant to be the Rick Grimes of World Gone Mad. And in my opinion, I think Lincoln West definitely has a lot of inspiration from that, but much more like of his own character as well, because he's also going off to find his family, but he's also had experience in this post-apocalyptic world to where he knows how to see if somebody is an enemy, if he knows somebody's weak point, but also if he knows leadership. And he does lead a lot of the characters very well, and he also has a little bit of that Joel Miller from The Last of Us elements, not only in the brutal moments, but also because of, well, I won't exactly say how he kind of reminds me a little bit of Joel Miller because, well, spoilers, but I will say that in Season 4, man, a lot of the moments with Lincoln in that season were definitely like so deep and very emotional at the same time. We also have Tom, who is like kind of the secondary main character of the show, and he is also very good. Like, not only does he have a lot of like witty one-liners, but also he has many brutal moments, and he does have the heart and care for many of his people, his friends, and maybe even future family. And he does support Lincoln very well, like brothers, almost like the Rick and Daryl of World Gone Mad. We have Sydney, who also is very awesome in action scenes. She kicks a lot of butt, and also has to go through some brutal moments as well. However, one of the characters that I was definitely seeing as one of the characters that goes through some of the most traumatic stuff in the show is Haley West, Lincoln's wife. She, like, is one of the most sympathetic characters of this show because she goes through so much traumatic loss in this show, especially amongst her family. I mean, so does Lincoln as well, but Haley, oh, it's so depressing, and I did feel so much sympathy towards her. And she also uses a lot of the loss and experience that she has in this world to her advantage to develop into a very strong person, filled with so much confidence, and making sure that the loss that she suffers doesn't break down who she needs to be in order to protect the people that she loves. And I thought her character development was very well done in the show. But if I had to say who was my favourite character in the show, and I think he might be, it's this character, Dave. He was definitely one of, if not the most captivating, and honestly one of the most well-developed characters in the show, and has some amazing character arcs with him. Because at first, you do kind of seem very untrustworthy with this guy, and seeing what he does at first, you're just like, yeah, this character is like terrible. He's a terrible human being and we do not like him. But then we get into some backstories with his character, and we see a lot of the loss and vendettas he has against other people that, honestly, anybody in the show could go down that path, and I think we've even seen a few characters that have gone down that path. And he definitely makes sense to the character, and we do understand where he's coming from, but we also were like, we don't agree with his actions. But then we see him develop as the show goes on and go through some redemption arcs and see him go through confidence and strength as a character that honestly is definitely the best developed character in this entire show, and I really like him. And also he does have a lot of charisma as a character, and I think Dan did a fantastic job performing as him. And there's also a lot of characters in this show, like some of the leaders of some of the communities, some of the girlfriends that many of our characters form bonds with, and of course, the most well-known character in the show, Snoop Dogg. Yeah, who doesn't love Snoop Dogg, man? He's such a lovely little dog. We also have quite a few villains and antagonists in the show, and I think that the way that Dan writes these villains is very interesting because many of them you just love to hate because they're so unredeemable and just aggressive and the most diabolical people. But some of them are actually layered while being brutal, especially the character of Bishop. I love this character. I won't go into too much detail about him, but he is definitely, besides another character I've mentioned before, he's one of the best developed characters on the show for the amount of time that he was in, and I think he definitely might be my favourite villain of World Gone Mad so far. Another thing in terms of like the editing and visual display of this show that I forgot to mention earlier, I really like a lot of the music choices that Dan uses in this show, because he definitely has a lot of Western music being used. In fact, the different kind of songs he uses for the theme song of the show have like Western string instruments that we've seen in many Western shows and post-apocalyptic shows. And again, the emotional music that he uses are very well done choices of music. I do know that he did kind of have some issues trying to get some music into these episodes because, well, YouTube seems to have a problem with blocking videos that use music. Even though we know that we don't own the copyright to these songs, we're just using them just for like our own little projects, not using them to make money or anything, but YouTube still blocks them anyway. Which, yes, I understand YouTube's intentions, but yeah, it can be a little annoying. But when the episodes aren't blocked and the music is heard, it's very well done selection of different pieces of what you can hear from different projects. And I think that the action and emotional and just Western vibe that the show goes for is very well displayed in the music as well. Now, so far there are 4 seasons of this show, and I will say that there are so many shocking moments and well-written storylines in terms of like the different antagonists we faced and the different ways that the show goes out of the way to make it brutal sometimes. And many people who are fans of Dan's reviews know that there is a season 5 on its way at some point this fall, and I think I have a rough idea of when it could be, but I could be wrong. But I have to say I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in season 5, because the way season 4 ended and how it left us is like, oh, it makes us want more! That's really a great way of enticing people to come back to watch the next part of the story. And I think that the overall work that Dan had to go through to make the show possible is very well done work. Like, I don't know how he's so busy. Like, he's always making videos every single day, and I'm just like, man, how does he have time for this? I have trouble trying to make videos every day because I only make reviews like every couple of weeks or so, and I'm like, man, the guy never stops, but that's great. He's constantly doing so much to talk about his thoughts on YouTube every single day, and I thought that it was very good. But in terms of this series, the amount of work it went through to make this show possible is very, like, dedication at its finest. It's definitely fantastic. Now, I definitely have a lot of good things to say about this show. I do think it is a very well told story with great characters and really different kinds of settings and ways to visually display a kind of story inspired by multiple shows. However, I will say that this show definitely has its own problems. However, some of them might be problems that I have, because the thing is that I think this is definitely a very difficult review for me to make, because, well, I mean, first off, I haven't sat in a chair talking to the camera about a review that I'm doing in a very long time, in a few months. But also, I don't really review stuff like this. I don't usually review shows made by YouTubers, especially ones that have like a narrated imagery kind of style. So it is kind of hard for me to review it because it's the first time I do it, but I'll just do it anyway. And I do apologise for me kind of stuttering a bit of my words now and again and not knowing what to say, but I think that's my own way of discussing multiple shows, because I guess it's just my own vocabulary. But I will say, I do want to discuss my own problems with this show, but again, it's nothing to really like getting at the show itself. It's just my own few problems I have. One thing I will say about this show is that because there's so much dialogue that's being spreaded all across the screen, it can be a little bit hard to follow the different dialogue and pieces of exposition that the characters are saying when there's like multiple words being like on screen, and it can sometimes be hard to follow who is saying what and, wait, which character is in this location? What's that character's name again? Because, well, there's so much like dialogue being said on screen and so much text being shown on screen. But I think it could be due to the fact that when I was watching the show, I believe it took me a good amount of like 10 months to finish the show because I was so busy on the side, but I definitely felt a good sense of victory when I finally finished the show. However, with all that time being spent, because it's only text and mostly a lot of the images of different characters aren't being shown, sometimes it can be hard to know which character is which and who's that character's name again. And also, I will admit, there are a few moments in the show where it can be a little bit slow paced now and again, and it can be kind of hard sometimes to be engaged with the story because there's so much like pacing that's been taking its time. But again, it could be due to the fact that this is a very dialogue heavy show and a narrated show, which again I think is a great visual choice. And heck, maybe some projects I made can be too dialogue heavy, so maybe I'm kind of like talking about some problems that maybe my own projects have. I guess it's just my own opinions when I'm talking about somebody's project. It is kind of hard to like talk problems without like upsetting the person, but I guess it's just my own thing, and I think Dan even mentioned in a video that he's fine when he's hearing complaints because it helps him to improve some things that might need improving. And honestly, the way that this show is demonstrated, I don't think he can improve because that's the point of the show, with like so much text being on the screen. So honestly, you don't need to change that. I think it's just my own personal attention span problem because there's so much text and so much dialogue that it can get a bit clunky about who is saying what, who that character's name is, and also a lot of like a bit of slow pacing where I was like, oh, okay. But again, it's just my opinion. However, I also will say that there are a few writing decisions when it comes to different characters exiting the show and, you know, different ways of displaying a story that I personally wasn't exactly the biggest fan of. Again, it's only a few, but it's some that I personally like. The characters in these moments are so good, and I feel like these characters are so well written that whenever a character leaves the show or a character gets axed from the show, the way they do it sometimes is a little bit like, I don't really agree with that. I'll give you an example without giving away spoilers. There's a character in Season 4 that goes through so much development, and in my opinion, I feel like the development that they went through was very well written and so captivating and so admiring to watch that it helps us to really connect with the characters so much. And it looks like this character is pretty much just going to get their conclusion after all of that storytelling. It's pretty much just like their conclusion to the story. And then one of our main characters just comes right out of nowhere and shoots them, and that character dies. Like, it just, out of nowhere, like at the last split second, that character just dies. And I get that that was the point of that scene, because Dan did say in a video that it was intentional, but it felt like we just did that character's like story, and it looked like it was pretty much coming right to an end, and then, you know, just for the last second, that character is dead now. And I feel like if you were to kill that character, I felt like you could have done it in like the climax of like the storyline that this character is set in. But I guess that's just my opinion, but I wasn't the biggest fan of how this character went out. And there are quite a few characters where I feel like some of them didn't get that good of a death, or they could have had better deaths, or I don't know, it's just my opinion. But honestly, a lot of the other deaths in the show were very well written and very, like, enticing and brutal. Like, some of these are very, very brutal and depressing, but it adds to the shock value and depth that the show displays. So overall, guys, I have to say, I really enjoyed World Gone Mad. This is a very enticing show, and for a narrated imagery showing apocalyptic show created by a YouTuber, it actually has some pretty high value. In fact, the writing is definitely its strongest points. In fact, honestly, I think it's better writing than some of the shows made by well-known TV channels. I mean, it's definitely better than a lot of the writing they had on Fear the Walking Dead. Like, definitely miles better. Like, Dan honestly should have taken Ian and Andrew's place and wrote in Fear himself, because I feel like he would have stuck to the vision of Dave Erickson much better than whatever the hell Ian and Andrew were doing. but I thought that World Gone Bad was very good. I cannot wait to see season 5. It had great characters, fantastic writing, well put together narration and acting on Dan's part, and I definitely cannot wait to see what other projects Dan will make next, or what he's already made. And I also will definitely watch a lot of his videos in the future, because they are very good videos to watch. And in my opinion, I definitely would recommend watching this show, but when you guys finish the show, like whoever, if anybody wants to watch it, definitely give it a shot, definitely support Dan's work. But I really do recommend, after finishing the show, I recommend watching a very informative and very interesting and captivating video made by Dan called The History or the Making of World Gone Bad Season 4, which Dan talks about all of the work, all of the stress, all of the struggles, but all of the succession of getting that 4th season of World Gone Bad made. That is a video that I always listen to whenever I need something to listen to when a creator is talking about his work, and I think it's a very great video, so definitely go check that out after you watch World Gone Mad, because that video will contain spoilers. But this show I thought was fantastic. I cannot wait to see more of World Gone Mad, and overall I'll give this show a 4.25 star out of 5, which I believe in Dan's review scales, whenever he rates a show or an episode, it would be like an 8.5 out of 10, I believe. For over a 4 out of 5, that is a great scale, so well done Dan on his writing, and I cannot wait to see what he makes next. But anyway guys, if you've seen World Gone Mad, or if you've been following Dan's Reviews channel, what do you think of the show? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And what is your favourite independent project made by a YouTuber? Let me know in the comment section below. There's more videos to come, and I'm Daniel, reviewing movies, TV shows, and doing videos. Till then, peace out, man.